Hey girl, are your healthy habits all over the place or non-existent? Do you wish you could find true food freedom, move your body for joy, and really just talk a little nicer to yourself? If you have tried to habit hack your health, but the strategies you've tried just haven't worked for you in your busy lifestyle, then this podcast is for you. Hey, I'm Emily Nichols, habit and fitness coach, behavior change specialist, and Taco Tuesday enthusiast. Hey, I am here to tell you there is an easier way than what we've been taught about our health and our habits. How do I know? Well, because I've transformed my own life through habit hacking, and now my family gets the best of me, and I now help my clients do the same. I'm now going to teach you how to create healthy habits in less time, guilt-free for all seasons of your life. It's not your fault your habits haven't worked, my friend. We just have to do them differently. So, are you ready to feel empowered and transform your habits and life? Then let's do this. You are listening to episode 204 of Self Transformed. Hey friend, welcome back to the show. I am so excited for today's topic and our guest. You are going to love Megan. I love following her on Instagram and listening to her show as well. Before we get into this conversation though, I wanted to remind any of you that have one of my accelerators. Either you have the bundle with all three, or you have just the movement, mindset, or food freedom accelerator. You should have got an email from me in the last week that I moved the private podcast to a new platform. And by popular demand, I have created a community, a Facebook group for anyone that purchases the accelerator. You'll be put in a Facebook group with other folks who are going through any of the accelerators or the bundle, and I will be going live every week for office hours where you can ask me questions, connect with others going through these mini courses, celebrate each other's successes, and I'll answer any questions you have and kind of help you habit hack any type of challenges you're having with any of those fundamental needs. I also updated each accelerator. I've been busy re-recording them, but there's a download, an action sheet to help you just kind of remember the method I teach there, how to accelerate your healthy habits. But I have a habit loop inside of there, right? Really what these accelerators are, I teach my 5-step method in the Healthy Habit Resets, my free masterclass. Go check it out. But steps 4 and 5, that's where we really dig deep into habit strategy once we figure out which direction we're going to take it. And the accelerators dig deeper into creating habit loops, tracking, and then stacking these new habits. So with each of the accelerators, I have included 20 more habit loops. So 20 more cue, routine, reward, habit loops specific to each accelerator. So it gives you a lot more specific examples, and I'm really excited about it. And if you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, Emily. So the accelerators are my mini courses. They're meant to accelerate your healthy habits. So either in all 3 fundamental needs that I teach on, or just one at a time, depending on what would best serve you in the season of life you're in, and addressing those challenges in each area that you all have shared with me. I created these accelerators based off conversations with previous clients, self-transformed community members, anybody and everybody, surveys we sent out, and I'm really excited about what we developed and the results people are getting. And this is just kind of phase 2 of what we're doing. So go check them out. It's linked in the show notes for you. So let's go talk about how to actually like working out and keeping nutrition simple in today's episode. I can't wait to talk about this. So I personally see movement as joyful and as a form of self-care, like I shared last week when we were talking about ways to budget and save money on your workouts. Now, I personally, as a habit and fitness coach, I specialize in functional fitness. And really, I specialize in many different formats. And I'm actually learning a new format and a new certification, which I'll be sharing about here with y'all pretty soon. And I'm always learning, okay? But functional fitness is a type of exercise that really supports your everyday life, like walking, pushing, pulling, bending, squatting, lunging, core work, for example. And what these exercises do is really just improve your functional strength. I'm personally training for life, and I teach any class in real life and via my accelerators as well, that same philosophy. However, which we're going to dig in deeper into this with Megan on our conversation, most of us don't view movement that way. We view it as grueling, not fun, painful. Diet culture has just really given us an unrealistic and unattainable view of health. And we start with in mind that we want to be smaller. That's what we start with most cases, right? We're working out because we want to be smaller. We want to lose weight. And it's no wonder we've just tried everything and nothing has been sustainable for you. We also see this with nutrition, right? We come from such a diet culture mentality, which in the movement and Food Freedom Accelerator, we have a whole section on habit hacking, diet culture, BS, if you will, and how to change your mindset around that, thinking about how women have to do habits differently and habit cueing from there. But we see nutrition as restrictive and hard, and you're hungry or hangry, and that's just not fun. What really changed for me personally was always to find a little bit further down from that diet culture mentality. You know, I'm 41. I grew up watching people do Weight Watchers, Snackwell cookies, all the things. And now I have a version of food freedom where I no longer restrict. I no longer have to have diet foods, but I make it fun and think about what will fuel my body and my soul, like hello tacos and margaritas. You know this, girl, and my love for Taco Tuesday. So in my opinion, these are all really high forms of self-care, and we really just have to change our mindset around movement and nutrition and see it as taking care of ourselves, not just now, but this is long-term. This is training for life. We just don't see it that way though, do we? And it's not your fault. We just have to change the way we view it. Okay, so today we're going to be flipping the script and changing all that with our guest, Megan Dahlman of the Self Care Simplified Podcast. So let me tell you about Megan. She is a certified strength and conditioning trainer and nutrition coach who's passionate about helping women love their bodies and thrive in their health. Through her top-rated podcast, Self Care Simplified, which make sure to go listen, folks. I'll have her linked in the show notes, and online training programs and courses, she is committed to coaching women along a grace-filled journey so they can break free from culture's toxic obsession with the scale and achieve lasting strength and health through simple steps. Love that. When she's not coaching or working out, you can find her riding her horse Lulu on her land in Idaho, where she lives with her husbands and 2 boys. So she's a boy mama as well. So friends, you are going to really love this conversation. And like I just said, Megan's really great at allowing us to think of giving ourselves grace and seeing our health as self-care, and we're in it for the long term. Speaking my love language here. I love it so much. So get a pen and paper handy. Open your head, open your heart to this conversation between me and Megan Dahlman of the Self Care Simplified Podcast. I'll see you at the end, and I'll share my top 3 takeaways with you. Hey gang, thank you so much again for tuning into Self Transformed. I am so excited for you to hear this conversation today with Megan Dahlman of Self Care Simplified. Megan, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Emily. I'm super pumped to chat with you today.
Same. All right, Megan. Well, the first question I ask every guest when we come on is, what comes to mind when you hear the phrase self-transformed?
Wow, coming out of the gate strong.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big question. And, I think I was thinking about this, and in my mind, I feel like self-transformation is not necessarily about, becoming a new person. I feel like it's more about taking who you already are, kind of capitalizing on the strengths that you already have, the things that you're already really good at, the things that you're doing well, recognizing those, celebrating those, making sure that you're not overlooking those things, and then making simple bite-sized improvements on areas that are not going so well in your life. So kind of having this category of like, what can I improve on, but what can I also celebrate? Because I think we get so stuck on our failures. We've always heard it, like a negative comment has so much more weight than a positive comment. And I think that's kind of how we talk to ourselves all day long, like our shortcomings, especially when we look around and compare ourselves to other people. And I think when we're in that headspace, we end up feeling like self-transformation must mean that I have to change everything about myself to become a better person or to make myself more like another person. I think nothing could be more defeating, right? And I recently had a conversation with a gal that I coach, and she was working on, what she would probably call like self-transformation. She was working on getting in better shape and making some simple nutrition changes and that self-transformation process. And she just kept getting like stuck and paralyzed along the way. And she was realizing that she was trying to do it perfectly. She was trying to do it how um, she thought she was supposed to. A good worker outer means that it's someone who works out first thing in the morning.
Mhm.
Someone who's a really healthy eater is someone who counts all their macros, and she was just getting stuck because she felt like, well, I'm just going to do it wrong. And she just kept noticing all of her failures instead of actually, what can I do? What are the things I'm already doing well? And capitalize on those, massage those, make those a little bit better, a little more polished, and then turn your attention on those tiny little things that might need a little bit of tweaking and kind of letting go of that perfectionism and perfect way, that quote unquote perfect
Oh, yeah.
way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
goodness. And that's why women have to do habits differently. I was actually just talking with my husband about this last night. I'm rolling out a few new programs and I was just kind of going through a few things with him. And it's interesting hearing his feedback from the male perspective versus the female perspective. He's like, well, I just have these big goals I want to do and I'm working out just because I love it and I like doing it. And I'm like, well, for us, we're like, we think we have to do it this way or we should do it that way, or we doubt ourselves or don't trust ourselves because of our past failures. And the whole part of transformation like you said, Megan, it's just kind of little bite-sized dials here or there to kind of tweak what is working or not working for you personally. And it's not necessarily changing everything, but it's celebrating what is working for you right now and just
Yeah.
evolving as time goes on, right?
Totally. And I think, something that you just mentioned there about your husband and the conversation you were having with him is that, maybe part of that transformation process in our mind is getting to a place that we can do our habits without the goal of it transforming anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like just doing it for the sake of this feels good. Like it doesn't need to make a change. It doesn't need to create change. And I think sometimes as women, we feel like unless it changes something, unless there's a transformation that takes place, it's not worth doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think when we're stuck in that mindset, we end up just not doing a lot of things because we feel like it's not going to be effective, or we don't encounter the true transformation that probably actually needs to take place, which is just that humility to be okay
Mm-hmm.
with it being the way it is right now and being content with maybe how your body is right now.
Right.
And that's a hard growing process, is
And
to
that's so
be okay with no transformation.
yeah. And sometimes that transformation just happens in between your two ears, right? Inside your brain and
Yes.
your heart and all the things. So that takes time.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that
Mhm.
could be a whole episode in itself. So,
Right.
well, let's get to know you a little bit better, Megan. Can you share a bit about what you do and really who you are as well?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a strength and conditioning specialist and a certified nutrition coach. And my mission really is taking the process of women wanting to get healthier in their bodies, become more fit, become more athletic. Maybe they have pain. Maybe they feel like when I move throughout the day, like I just feel old and achy and like I don't have any energy and I'm just discouraged. And taking them, meeting them right where they're at with really simple tools that they can implement today that immediately feel good. And that is my passion, is helping women get to a place where they're hopeful in their body and they feel good and they love the process. And gosh, fitness and nutrition for many women doesn't feel good. It feels like work. It feels like sweat. It feel, I polled my audience one time. I'm like, what are the words that come to mind when you hear the word workout? And people were like pain, sweat, punishment, fat crying, all these things where it's like, oh, no wonder it's hard to find motivation to do it. You don't like it. It doesn't,
Mhm.
like, you dread it.
Mhm.
And what if we change that narrative? And I showed you a way, like, there's a way that you can train your body where you're not sore for 5 days after your first workout and just know, like, I'm not going to be able to walk after this. And I'm scared to sign up for something because the last time I did it, I got hurt. I'm afraid to change my nutrition habits because the last time I did it, I had to cut out all the happy food out of my life and it didn't work. It's like, what if we completely change that narrative? And so, I've been working with women for a very long time now. I started my personal training company back in 2009 and moved now to training mostly women online. And with the hundreds and thousands of women that I've coached throughout the years, they just are craving that feeling of being hopeful in their body again, whatever stage of life that they're at. And I love being able to show them that that's absolutely possible.
I love that, feeling hopeful in their body. I hope everyone just got the warm fuzzies like I did, because I don't feel like a lot of women feel that way about their
Yeah.
bodies, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just this sense of there's so many things I should be doing. We have this running list of I should be eating better. I should be exercising more. I should be changing this and this and this. And going back to what we were just talking about earlier, it's like, oh, if we just dwelt a little bit more on the things that we are already doing well, and then just made tiny baby step tweaks to the things that we know could use a little bit of improvement, um, we would eventually get to that place like, wow, how did I arrive here? My body feels really good. I
Mhm.
feel fantastic. And it wasn't punishment in the process.
Mhm.
And I need women to know like that is possible. You can get to a place where you love your body. You put on clothes in the morning and feel good in your clothes. You have energy all day long. Your back and hips don't hurt. You know how to eat without fear that you're going to pick the wrong thing, without doing it in a way that is punishment and discouraging. It's absolutely possible.
Yeah. I feel hopeful just from you saying that. And I feel pretty great all the time, most of the time, about
Yes.
movement and food and all that too. So, and you're right. Like, there's been this conception that we just have to work really, really, really hard in the gym, and we have to count our macros, and we're working towards this goal weight or this event. But really, I feel like we just need to be training for life. And a lot of times I think we want the biggest, quickest fix possible. So that means I got to go really hard for so long. And what happens on the other side is you burn out, because that's just not sustainable. And that's training for something. What happens after 30 days? What happens after the wedding? You go back to your way of life because it's just not sustainable. And you maybe gain the weight back. And it's just this vicious cycle where you're like, oh, I can't be trusted. I can't do this. I can't do that. And it's just, I hope women listening feel hopeful and know that, hey, it's just about tiny little changes over time that can really make a big difference. I love that.
Yeah. And, achieving that goal weight, at what cost? What do you lose to achieve that? What pieces of your soul end up dying
Right?
along the way just to say like, hey, I hit the number. And there's a way that you can be happy in your body and feel great without losing your soul in the process.
Mm-hmm.
And I think many women do not know what that feels like. And I think you and I have the same mission of showing women that there's a different way to go about health and fitness that does not include any of those extreme things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's absolutely possible, but it is kind of countercultural.
Oh,
It
totally.
you have to be aware of like, what are the messages that I'm seeing out there all day long, and what is feeding my brain and feeding my soul, and setting these expectations inside of my mind of how this should look, and realizing like, okay, this is I'm committing to doing it the countercultural way, the
Mm-hmm.
way that is sustainable and slow. And I like to say team tortoise, we're like, let's all be on team tortoise. And that's not flashy. It's not exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes perseverance and it takes dedication and a lot of mind maturing in the process. And It's hard. It is hard to be on Team Tortoise, but it's so worth it.
Yeah. Well, it makes my heart sad sometimes that, just what you were saying, like women see exercise or movement as punishment and hard.
Mm.
And, I've grown over my own personal relationship with movement and fitness. And I see it as like one of my highest forms of self-care. Like I crave it now. It's an unconscious habit. It's taken years to get there, and find what that movement looks like for me. But for so many women, movement isn't a high form of self-care, and it's complicated just to a lot of the things we were just talking about and leading to over exercise and burnout. And I love how you're really great at sharing just simple movements, simple low impact movements. And I wonder if you can kind of share and dig a little deeper into the importance of not having to do like high intensity workouts all the time, but varying your workouts, easing into low intensity, doing something more moderate and mixing it up so you don't burn out, or even worse, get forced into longer rest days than what you want because you're hurt.
Because you're hurt, because you injured yourself. And
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. And I even just love how you're using the word movements there. And that's something that I think it's helpful in all of our minds to maybe even just change the vocabulary around what we use. Like the word movement has such a positive like feeling in our brains than the word exercise. The word like my group of movements rather than like my workout. Just tiny tweaks of how we talk to ourselves about what our habits are can make a big impact. But anyway, that's kind of another topic. But you know, as I'm thinking about like high versus low intensity stuff and finding that balance between doing high intensity movements versus low intensity movements, think of it this way. If you go to the doctor and they want to take a closer look at your heart, and you get scheduled for like an EKG, they hook you up to all the little pads and you got all the wires connected to you, and you can look over and you see what that readout looks like. It's a line that has highs and lows. It's jagged, it's up, down, up, down, up, down. And that is reflective of life. Like you want it to look like that,
Mhm.
right? You want it to have the highs, the lows. A flat line, if that line is like flat, that is indicative of massive heart failure and death,
Mhm.
right? And so if you're flatlined in your habits, like you don't have a balance of highs and lows, that is not real health.
Mhm.
That's not a healthy life. That's an indication that something is wrong and something is probably going to die real soon. And we have this mindset that if we are going to show up and do something for our bodies, it must be intense. It must be that high peak. And it must burn the maximum amount of calories. It must boost your metabolism like crazy. It must leave your fat crying. It's kind of this like boot camp culture that we have in our brains of, if I am going to do a workout, it's got to be 45 to 60 minutes long. It's got to be super high intensity. It's got to keep my heart rate in a certain zone. And anything that is not in that zone, well, then it's not worth doing at all.
Mhm.
And what we don't realize is that by always trying to be up in that really high zone, it makes it so that zone of intensity starts to get less and less and less and less and less. And we can't push into that zone as much anymore because we don't have the low valley buffering it on the other end. So when it comes to your movements, your workouts, um, it's so valuable to buffer those high intensity days, the high intensity routines with very intentional, low impact movements, low intensity work, things that are restorative, things that help encourage recovery, that work on your mobility, that work on other things that are challenging that, you probably feel that aren't worth doing. Things like allowing your joints and tissues to lengthen and rest and really feel how that feels. And, it's the other thing that I like to think of is I have this analogy that makes so much sense. I like to call it the pendulum analogy. And this is when, if you take a normal pendulum, right, and you pull it really high to one side, the moment you let go, it has to go the exact same height in the other direction. So let's say that you sign up and you're going to do 30 straight days in a row of like 45-minute long workouts. Or another very popular program right now is the 75 hard. I know a lot of women that sign up for 75 hard. So it's pretty intense, right? 75 days in a row of you are on, you are on. This is like the peaks of the vet. This is the peaks. What happens when you let go of that pendulum? Chances are you're going to do the same amount of days in a row of doing nothing.
Okay, friends, let's be real here for a second, okay? There are so many energy drinks out there that are only focused on giving you the jitters before a workout. And I don't know about you, but I hate that feeling. Well, not Fit Aid Energy. Fit Aid is boosted with 200 milligrams of clean caffeine from green tea, never the synthetic kind, so you never get that jittery feeling. And plus, it's only 15 calories per can. What I love is that they're not claiming that their energy drink will help you to burn fat or make empty promises. You put in the hard work and Fit Aid will help energize and refuel so you can do it again tomorrow. And unlike many other energy drinks, Fit Aid Energy maximizes your athletic performance by focusing on both training and recovery, which I am all for as a trainer myself. So go grab one of the amazing Fit Aid Energy flavors and you can save 40% off plus free shipping on your first order of 24 cans of Fit Aid Energy. Just go to drinkfitaid.com/habithack. All right, friends, let's get back to the show.
It has to go in that direction. So our goal with our health and fitness is to try to get the pendulum to swing like very little. It's got to swing. That's life. But you're going to have high days, you're going to have low days, and to make sure it's constantly swinging back and forth, but never going to one extreme or the other. And being okay with those low impact movements and realizing like this is going to make my high impact movements that much more effective.
Yeah, that's the key right there, Megan, because I think a lot of people think like, oh, I don't want to go and just do like a stretching and mobility exercise for 15 minutes. How is that going to burn calories? And it's like, well, it's going to help you not get hurt. It's going to improve your flexibility. Maybe you'll run faster. I mean, there's so many different things that could compound from just simple, small movements like that. And I don't think we give it enough credit of what it can do for you. And, especially for women, I'm 41 and I look at my mom who's almost 70 and I'm like, oh my gosh, Mom, like, I wish you would, just do some light weight training. I'll give her some exercises because my grandma had really bad arthritis. I'm like, let's improve your bone density or let's just do some stretches together. And she's just like, well, she grew up doing like step aerobics and all that. And like, that was fun. But for her, it was like, okay, we got to be cardio queens. We got to do this and like count our calories really, really strict. And it's just so hard to overcome that mentality that how slower impact movement can be so much more impactful than high intensity all the time. It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
100%. And I like to think of it in a framework of your fitness, that your body, it requires 6 different aspects of fitness. There are 6 different aspects of fitness. And if any one of those pieces are missing, your body will not be functioning at its absolute best. And you'll feel it. You'll feel like something is off. Something's wrong. I'm not as healthy and fit as I could be. And the first aspect is that cardiovascular fitness. This is what, like, those of us, we're familiar with this one. We're like, yeah, you got to get your heart and lungs working. You got to get that cardio going. Okay, great. Cardiovascular fitness. That's just one. The second one is that muscular strength. Yes, resistance training. You got to build up those muscles. You got to get them going. Okay. That's where most women stop with just those 2. They're like, well, I'm going to do something for my cardio and then I'm going to do something for my muscles. Okay. There are 4 more aspects of your fitness. And if you miss these, your body will break. It won't operate very well. The third aspect is your balance. Balance, working on balance. And this is where a lot of women, as they age, if they're only doing cardio, if they're only stepping on the stair stepper or doing the elliptical and then going and lifting a few weights, just standing there, their balance is not being stimulated and they'll lose it and they'll get hurt. The fourth thing is your flexibility, that joint mobility. That's another thing you were just mentioning. Like, without that, you will get hurt. Something won't operate. And then we have coordination. This is a big thing as we age. Our body parts kind of stop talking to each other and things don't even coordinate very well. And it could be as simple as like your pelvic floor coordinating with your squats.
Mhm.
And so that joint or that muscle coordination is so valuable. And then power, your body's ability to contract quickly and catch yourself if you need to, and having that power. And so most women will think, well, the only thing I need to be working on in my workouts is, build my muscle and work my heart, do the cardio and the strength. It's like, no, 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 no. There are 4 other aspects. And what can we do to create a routine that includes all 6 aspects? And that means that some days are going to have to be a little bit lighter intensity. It
Mhm.
means that some days aren't going to be the cardio focus. It means that some days you're going to be focusing a little bit more on that coordination and flexibility. Maybe you're focusing a little bit more on that balance, but that is every bit as important as the other 2 aspects of your fitness. And I think sometimes if we can have that more holistic viewpoint of what your body actually needs to
Mhm.
function and feel its absolute best for years to come, then we can walk into those workouts with a little bit more purpose and be content knowing this is doing something valuable and really important for my body.
Well, it's functional fitness, right? It's
Yes.
functional fitness. Like I know from my mom, I'm like, she's like, I want to be able to get on the floor and play with all my grandkids and get off the floor. I'm like, okay,
Yes.
okay, let's do it. Let's do it. And like you said, it falls under those 6 categories for sure. It's just not cardio. That's for sure.
Right.
That's for
Right.
sure.
Right.
And I think another aspect women kind of go all or nothing in, or it's very confusing, is nutrition, because that's
Yeah.
obviously a huge part of our health. Movement for your body is super important, but also how you're fueling your body. I like to talk about food freedom as kind of like, how do you fuel your body? What foods help fuel your body? Also, I'm kind of like, what foods kind of help fuel your soul too? Like, I am a big fan of
Yes.
tacos and margaritas, like that fuels
Yeah.
soul, but just not every day of the week. So I love how you kind of break it down differently and thinking about, nutrition as just getting your pros. And I think this is a really simple habit hack for people to think about when they sit down to create a meal. Can you share a little bit more about this? Because I think this is something really simple that our ladies will remember from today's episode.
They'll remember for the rest of their life. This is one of those things that once you hear it, you can't get it out of your brain, and it will literally guide your food decisions forever in such a simple way. And this all started from back in college. I was doing all these nutrition classes, and we had to put together meals, kind of all these like meal planning things. We would take an athlete from the college basketball team. We'd have to put together their meals. And then afterwards, it was all these like case studies, right? And I started to see all of these clinically designed meals all have the exact same thing in common. The one like, and no matter what the goals were for that person, there were little tweaks here and there, but there was something that was always without fail on everybody's plate. And then as I started to observe even all the other like quote unquote diets out there, the ones that were highly effective, the ones that people were like, yeah, this is making me feel really great. I'm following the Mediterranean diet, or I'm following the whatever, whatever it could be. It's like, oh, this thing is happening again. It's always happening in the places where people are eating and feeling really, really great. And it's pros. Every time you put a meal together, look down at your plate and say, is protein here and is produce here? It has nothing to do with like, I got to count up the macronutrients. I got to have like like the serving sizes all perfectly. And I got to make sure I have, like we grew up with the food guide pyramid, and it's morphed and changed like a million times over the years. And then there was the calorie counting phase. And I think we've come through the keto, and then we're kind of back in the macro phase and all. Let's throw a lot of that out the window and just be like, hey, do I have protein and do I have fresh produce on my plate? I cannot go wrong with that. I will always, always, always benefit from having a plate that is full of protein, full of produce. And so I always like to say, just eat your pros. And this can happen in a very, fancy, elegant way. This can be a beautiful, like, steak with a wonderful salad. It could be literally as simple as a chicken nugget and some grapes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some women need to hear, like, sometimes you're going to have days where eating your pros looks a little different, but you can still step away from that meal and be like, yeah, that wasn't perfect, but I put a little bit of effort as I was eating some of those chicken nuggets for my kid. I realized, oh, I also need to have some produce. So I grabbed a handful of grapes. That is a win in that moment. You did not fail. You did a great job. And you're going to have some meals that are going to be a little higher in the protein and produce, maybe a little bit leaner, a little bit more nutrient dense. But I think if every meal that we encounter, if we can just say, hey, where can I add more protein to this? How can I add more produce to this? We are going to be a healthy eater for life. And this is something you can easily teach your kids, and you can easily teach your mom. Like, all of us get it. It makes sense, and it works in every situation.
Yeah.
Restaurants, buffets, whatever it might be, you can find protein, you can find produce.
That's such a simple hack. Like you said, people are going to remember that listening, because it's like, okay, that's easy to remember, because a lot of times nutrition just feels so complicated. We sit down to like make lunch, if we remember to eat lunch, and we're like, oh my gosh, what can I get super, super quick, like in my mouth right now? And a lot of times it might be, I'm just going to eat a protein bar. Like, I'm just going to do this or do that. And like you said, there's a time and place where you're just trying to do the best you can. But if you're going to eat that protein bar, can you like pair it with like even just an apple or
grab
some
an apple
butter? Yeah. Just something that's a little more satiating for you over time. And then I think eventually that turns into a habit where you just automatically like, okay, I'll just do like a protein and some type of produce and doing the best you can. Right.
Totally. And it's just this like tiny little framework that's just going to help guide your decisions and make you feel like you are putting out some intentional effort. You're being intentional with your eating. In the back of your mind, this isn't perfect, but for so many women that are like, I never have a chance to eat breakfast, or I never have a chance to eat lunch. Like, I'm super busy. I'm always on the go and I'm scrambling. And so I just end up having, a handful of crackers dipped in hummus and feel like, well, it was better than nothing. It's like, okay, what can we do in that situation? Great, fine. Have the crackers and the hummus, but what's probably also missing? Maybe that produce. Like, maybe we could add a little, like, grab that apple or have a banana. Or, same with, like you mentioned, the protein bar. Okay, great. Have the protein bar. We already know it's probably pretty high in protein. So maybe also grab an apple with that, and you did something intentional to round out your meal. And, the science behind all of that, like what those nutrients are doing in your body, don't get bogged down by that. You don't need to know all that. You just need to know, like, okay, I have protein in my hand. I have produce in my hand. I'm doing a good job.
And celebrate that, right?
Yes.
Like you mentioned earlier, we're so quick just to be like so down on ourselves. And, we were talking about habit strategy a couple of weeks ago in a master class I was teaching, and I was talking about, when you create a new habit, celebrate it. And she's like, great. That feels awkward. How do I celebrate myself? And I was like, wow, I didn't even like dig deep into thinking about that. It could be as simple as like, yay, go me, I did it. Or like that feeling like when you are excited for your kids when they do something, you're quick to be like, yes. Or even just a little like simple as just going, yes, I did it, and just moving on. That's going to feel real good. Or thinking in the moment like, wow, that felt really good. Just being really intentional with what I was eating today. That felt great.
Yeah. And it motivates you to keep doing it and keep showing up. And it gives you that proof that you're doing something effective and something intentional. And my signature program that I offer people, it's called Jumpstart 30. And this is kind of like this is the core of it, because it's like, I understand, I mentioned, I love meeting people where they're at, and they're probably at a place where like, I haven't worked out in months. I'm afraid to hurt myself. I also have, my eating habits have been a mess. I kind of just don't really know where to start. And most of the time when they start a program, it's like, well, let me just throw you into the deep end and then hope you swim, and like, bummer, you didn't make it. It's like, no, let's do it totally differently. And each day I just tell them exactly like, hey, day one, we're going to do these 4 feel good movements. They literally feel good out of the gate. Day one, it's just 4 exercises and they feel really good. And then the eating habit is literally just drink a glass of water at lunch. And then the third thing that they're supposed to do that day is celebrate their victory. Every single day, they have to pause at the end of the day and literally take a picture of their like tracking chart and send it to me with "I celebrated my victory" checked off. And
Mm.
it could be as simple as like, "I drank a glass of water at lunch." Sometimes we're like, I feel like I should have victories to celebrate, but I'm not really sure what I'm working on right now. Like, and so sometimes having that framework or that construct of like, these are the habits, don't think about anything else. Did you just do that today? Then you do have something to celebrate. And let's make sure we celebrate the heck out of that because it's going to help you show up again tomorrow.
Mm.
And when you approach your health and fitness that way, you will be shocked at how consistent you can be, at how motivated you stay. Because when you talk to women, that is one of their biggest struggles is like, I struggle to stay motivated. I can't get consistent. And it's like, well, let's stop trying to do things the same way you've always done them. Let's do them slower. Let's do them easier. And let's celebrate your victories. And when we do it that way, what a much more positive experience it can be.
Gosh, that's going to just build so much momentum too. So
Yes.
much momentum, so much momentum. Okay, two quick fire questions for you. If for someone listening today, what is a quick, simple habit around movement they could do today? And what's a simple habit they could do around nutrition today? It could even be something we already talked about.
Yeah, totally. I think with movement, do something that feels good
Mm,
and something that's familiar.
mm,
And you're far more likely to make it happen. And I think for most women, it's literally just going for a walk. And this goes back to that mindset of like, we feel like, well, that's not going to be enough. You know, you hear from so many trainers all the time. It's like, well, make sure you're doing something that gets your heart rate up and targets all of your movements and make sure that you do something for your core and da 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 da. Like, eventually, sure, we can get there, but let's just get the ball rolling with something that doesn't feel weird, that's not outside of your control. Like you don't have to learn something new. There's no learning curve. Just go for a walk. And the power of walking, of just a simple daily, especially outside in fresh air, that simple movement, it's amazing how motivating that is and what that also does for your health. Do not underestimate the power of a simple and not a power walk. This is like a leisurely stroll. This is like walking your dog. Just go do that today.
so simple. What about a simple nutrition habit hack they could do today?
Well, eat your pros
Eat
for
pro.
sure. Yeah, eat your pros. And then I think, along those lines, I like to teach people habits that are not actually food because we have so many
Mhm.
like negative associations with actual food. And to come out of a gate with a habit that you're probably already doing pretty well. So you have that instant win. And like I mentioned, the water thing, like just drink a glass of water with each meal. It's going to help you slow down. It's not like you're trying to like fill your stomach up with water so you eat less
Right.
calories. Like it has nothing to do with that. It's just you're already in the environment of consuming something. So let's also hydrate. Let's also just make sure that you're hydrating. And that feels very doable of like, okay, yeah, I'm going to just drink a glass of water with my lunch today. I'm going to drink a glass of water at dinner today. I might also have a margarita, but I'm going to make sure that I also have a glass of water at dinner. And that feels like it's not a food thing. I'm not changing anything with my food habits, but it is being intentional and it's making an intentional choice for good, healthy habits.
Yeah. I love this conversation so much. It's all about just being intentional, simple, and watching that compound over time into really just training for life and feeling hopeful and feeling very, very good in your body. I love that so much, Megan.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for coming on this show. I could talk to you forever. Let's share with the audience, where can everyone connect with you and find out more?
Yeah. A great place to start since everyone listening is already kind of in the podcast sphere and your podcast listeners. So I know for myself, I'm always like, I want other podcasts to listen to, like show me others. So Self Care Simplified is my podcast. And that's a really great place to dig in and lots of great stuff there. And then of course on my Instagram feed, I'm very active on there. You can just follow me at Megan Dahlman on Instagram. And then, of course, my website. My company's name is Vigeo. So my website is vigeofit.com. So I have a lot of fantastic information there too.
That's awesome. We'll make sure to link everything in the show notes so everyone can come find you, Megan. But thank you so much for this conversation. I know everyone's going to benefit from it today.
Thank you so much, Emily. This was fun.
Megan, I loved it when we had this conversation. I loved listening back to it. Friends, I hope you took a lot of notes. I will be sharing my top 3 takeaways with you. I do this at the end of every episode. This is your first time listening to kind of give you the cliff notes. I know a lot of times we're folding laundry, we're making dinner, or driving, and sometimes you need to hear things a couple of times, or sometimes you just need to hear, okay, here's the main takeaways. So here they are. So my top takeaways are this. Number 1, let's do it the countercultural way. Let's do health differently. And I love how Megan mentioned team tortoise all the way. And I know we want to get the fastest results possible. I teach inside of all my programs. So just start with one fundamental need. Use the habit strategies, track it, and then stack more there. Because at the same time, I know from my own personal experience, a lot of my clients, we get so overwhelmed because we try to do all the things at once and we want the fastest results possible. And that's just not sustainable. So we have to think about this in long-term and team tortoise. I love this so much. And like Megan's mentioned, at what cost what's it going to cost you to achieve your goal weight? Don't lose your soul to training and restricting in order to make yourself smaller. Okay? Team tortoise all the way. Love it, love it, love it. So next, it doesn't have to be high intensity all the time and burning the most calories possible. Now, you're probably thinking, Emily, aren't you a coach at Orange Theory? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I don't go every day though. I'm always coaching folks there as well. Like, make sure you're taking time for active recovery. Make sure you're finding low intensity. Go do yoga. I'm a big fan of hot works. I'm a big fan of slowing down, which hint, hint, I'm dropping a little hint for you. There's something exciting coming from HotWorks and me pretty soon, which I'll be sharing about. I can't wait. But it doesn't have to be high intensity all the time. Intentional, low impact, and restorative work, like on your mobility, you might not see like a high calorie burn or get that sweat, but it's worth doing. What Megan mentioned, which I think is really important to remember, there's those 6 aspects of fitness, right? We all learn this as personal trainers, right? There's cardiovascular, muscular strength, like building strength, lifting weights, which is great, but a lot of times we get stuck in those 2 areas, right? We stop there. We're not thinking about balance, flexibility, coordination, power, all of these other important aspects of fitness where we need to light up those neurons in our brain that, okay, I know how to catch myself. I know how to balance. I have mobility. So number 1, you don't get injured. Number 2, when you get older, you're able to get up and off the floor, my friends, without pain. Okay. I don't know about you, but if you have a mom or grandma and you see them hurting all the time, I don't want that for you, friend. Okay. We have to think about this in the long term. And lastly, her nutrition habit hack, eat your pros. I love this so much. So just thinking about protein and produce, that's, like she said, you'll never forget that. And I teach inside the Food Freedom Accelerators, always starting with protein and the reason behind that, and the reason as women why we need to do a protein and produce focused meal plan, if you will, and moving forward. And that's so simple. I kind of just leave it at that. Each pros. Megan, love it. Love it. Thank you for that habit hack. So stay motivated and stay consistent the more simple you keep it. When we're trying to begin new healthy habits, if you make it hard and complicated and you're not enjoying it, right? It's hard, it's grueling, it's restrictive. My friend, it is not going to stick. It will not be sustainable. Thinking about your health in long term and that this is a form of self-care is vital to your health and making it sustainable. You're training for life. Okay. So Megan, thank you so much for this conversation. Friends, make sure to go listen to Megan's show, Self Care Simplified. I have it linked in the show notes for you as well. Last takeaway for you, celebrate yourself. Okay. Celebrate yourself for the small wins, the small habits you've been able to establish over time, because my friend, that will compound over time, and eventually, learning our systems we teach here, these habits will become unconscious behaviors you're able to do and pivot through all seasons of your life, not just today, but for your life. Doesn't that sound amazing? That's where the transformation happens, my friend. So again, Megan, thank you so much for this conversation. Friends, thank you so much for listening. If you're interested in exploring one of the accelerators, it's all linked in the show notes for you. If you are wanting to transform your health and accelerate that habit strategy, that's where it's at, friends. Okay, I will catch up with you later this week for Habit Hack Thursday. Hey girl, real quick before you go, did you know I have a secret podcast where I talk all about why most habit strategies don't work for us women? Spoiler alert, it's not our fault. Visit bit.ly/atomic habits for women. It's linked in the show notes to access my secret podcast series and have your biggest aha moment about why and how women have to do habits differently. And if you love the podcast, the number one way you can thank me is to leave a rating and review in iTunes. That way more mamas can find the show. Love and appreciate you, friend. We'll see you next time.